In the previous chapter, we saw tensions rise in the demon scheming sect as sect leader Ji Wu Yue demanded answers about the sect's performance at the Double Dragon gathering. Fiend Yang stalled, teasing Ji Wu Yue, while Zhuo Fan confidently brought two girls into the sect, defying all rules and asserting his authority in the labor office. Amid the chaos, hints of the sect's surprising victories began to surface, leaving everyone eager for the full story. Let's begin the chapter. Shi Wu Yu squinted, his eyes burning with an intense, simmering anger. "Fatty Yang," he growled. "You better give me an explanation right now, or so help me. I'll make you suffer if you keep showing off. Friendship be damned." "Easy, easy. I'll tell you for sure. Ha ha ha." Fiend Yang chuckled, and then whispered into Ji Wu Yu's ear, his voice low and conspiratorial. "Actually, Ji Wu Yu's eyes went wide, his jaw slack. "What?" he exclaimed, disbelief coloring his voice. "Say that again." "Ha ha ha. I knew you'd make that face," Fiend Yang laughed. "No one would ever believe our ever-cold demon scheming sect leader Z lost his cool." Chuckling, Fiend Yang turned to the oldies, his voice booming. "I'm saying that at the Double Dragon gathering, we became the top middle three sect, and we brought home 10,000 sacred stones." The oldies stood frozen, a dumbfounded, incredulous look plastered on their faces. They stared at the returning disciples, utterly shocked. The demon scheming sect was nothing but a lower three sect. How in the hell did it manage to become the top of the middle three? This was insane. Venerable Shai, leader of the inner sect's oldies, was just as stumped, his face a mask of bewildered disbelief. Never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined this time's team could return with any measure of success. Yet they didn't feel any joy, only a deep, sinking feeling of dread. The Double Dragon gathering team was made up of disciples from the elite labor office. It had nothing to do with the inner sect. This meant the labor office would become even more valuable, more important than ever before. And he was sure that Ji Wu Yue would soon use this credit to give the labor office all of the resources, while his inner sect would crumble. "Venerable Shai," one elder said, his voice laced with worry. Venerable Shi said nothing, his eyes flashing with a calculating gleam. "No matter, there's fortune in disaster. We still have to play along." His voice turned smooth, his face set in a knowing smile. "However, I must say that Zhuo Fan is incredible. If he weren't the sect leader's man, I would actually admire him. Ha ha ha." His gaze then turned to the calm and collected Zhuo Fan. The others looked utterly lost, confusion written on their faces. Why was Venerable Shi praising the enemy when the sect leader was about to throw the inner sect to the curb? Xie Wu Yue was completely out of it for a couple of minutes after Fiend Yang's revelation. When he finally came to, he glared and then smiled, grabbing the fat arm of Fiend Yang. "Fatty Yang, is that true?" he asked, his voice incredulous. "You're not fooling around, are you?" "Who would joke about something so huge?" Fiend Yang grinned, a touch of smugness in his tone as he taunted. "Besides, that bug-eyed look at our strong disciples isn't becoming of a top middle three sect." Fiend Yang then swaggered towards the disciples, putting on a smug look, as if they had all become so strong thanks to his dedicated training. Fiend Yin and Fiend Gui shook their heads, while Kui Lang's side puffed their chests out with pride and arrogance. The others' faces twitched, and they stared at the returned disciples with wide, disbelieving eyes. They hadn't noticed it before, but now they saw it. Just how long had it been? These little guys' strength had become completely unrecognizable. Except for 3 in the 6th layer radiant stage, the other 9 were in the ethereal stage. What miracle had brought on this change? Venerable Qi and Bai were ecstatic, their eyes gleaming. 4 of those 6 were related to them. Bai Lian and Qi Changlong were their grandchildren, while Yue Ling and Kui Lang were their disciples. In one move, they had gained 4 extra ethereal stage experts. They were now guaranteed to look good, and they were also qualified to work for their faction, consolidating their position. The labor office's oldies looked at these new shining disciples with beaming smiles. Only the inner sect faction stood there, glum, their faces tight with envy and embarrassment. This kind of success had never happened before, yet it had absolutely nothing to do with them. What no one noticed was a pair of eyes from Venerable Sha's faction that were fixed intently on Gui Hu. It was the Grand Elder. "I was right to have you enter the labor office," he thought to himself, smiling with pride. "You're far sharper than before." "Hold on. Let's all calm down first." As the crowd became noisier, Fiend Yang began to shout, his voice cutting through the din. "People, our success at the Double Dragon Gathering, the incredible improvement of our disciples, are all due to one man, Labor Office's steward, Zhuo Fan." A roar of approval erupted from the oldies, their gazes now fixed on Zhuo Fan, their faces filled with a newfound respect. Even the previously angry Xie Wu Yue was now grinning with joy. Bringing Zhuo Fan to the sect was the best move he had ever made. For thousands of years, with tens of sect leaders, finally, in his lifetime, the demon scheming sect had become the top middle 3 sect. The merit was monumental. Even the usually cold and stoic Xie Wu Yue started smiling, although Fiend Yang's tone suddenly changed, a shadow falling over his face. "You should also know that desperate times call for desperate measures. These kids got to improve so much so fast through many deadly perils. Those that didn't succeed, well, you can tell what happened to them." "Ugh!" The rest now realized the true meaning behind Fiend Yang's words. To make the disciples grow so quickly, Zhuo Fan had used life and death as his training tool. Brave the danger, and you would become a powerful expert. Fail, and you'd be nothing but bones on the road. And those that had failed, weren't they the precious disciples of the oldies? This created a rising tension. Hatred was now directed at Zhuo Fan. Fiend Yang's intent was clear: to highlight Zhuo Fan's great feats. Without him training the disciples, they would never have achieved their impressive new rank. But he was also warning the oldies not to seek revenge. "Your disciples died for the sect." However, while they understood his meaning, some were still deeply hurt by the loss of their cherished disciples. Xie Wu Yu's face became heavy and his voice turned serious. "Before setting off, I appointed Zhuo Fan as my representative, bearing my power. His word was my word. If you're looking for revenge, blame me." He then announced, his voice cutting through the air, "I said it already. The Double Dragon Gathering is of grave importance to the sect, not a place where you can butt in to gain some perks. Those that fell deserved their fate. But since the success has been so amazing, I will be generous even to them for all of their efforts." "Sect leader is brilliant," Fiend Yang shouted, his voice full of cheer as he clapped his hands. The oldies' grief had now become a sacrifice for the sect, although everyone here knew that even alive, those disciples wouldn't have achieved a thing at the gathering. Xie Wu Yue's statement was an act of fairness, and as for being generous, well, how could one be generous to a dead man? Any benefits would, in truth, be given to their masters. A token to soothe their hard feelings. The oldies were silent. Giving one's life to the sect was, after all, the obvious expectation, so they bowed their heads in respect. "Sect leader is brilliant," they said. Zhuo Fan's bothersome troubles had been washed away by Fiend Yang's timely intervention. It was the least he could do for Zhuo Fan, knowing the grudges of the demonic cultivators. Once he left the sect, he would have no one to protect him from the oldies' revenge. So, simmering down those flames of hatred before his departure was perfect. Zhou Fan understood his meaning, but he didn't care. He simply chuckled at Fiend Yang, acknowledging his effort. Less trouble was, after all, always better. We'll be holding a sect celebration for becoming a middle 3 sect, even the top one, Zi Wuyue announced excitedly. We'll hold a feast for 3 days straight. He laughed, his voice filled with joy. The others cheered, the air filled with celebration.